All right, let's get into Matthew 24 and the carcasses and the eagles that are gathered that Trump did, and that 4D, that Model T. Let's connect some things. As it says in Matthew 24:28 and the 29, and the 29 I told you connects us to the 29 and 33 for the Jesus on the cross that we're told in AD. That are the possible time ranges. And then the 33 year on Bill, whose also name is William, and that's the Will I Am, and the 23 on the 3 for the wild times, and the I Am and the MIA on a mix up and the missing in action, which we are seeing him and Hillary do now with that subpoena, as a sub is surfacing, and these different things that I've gotten into before. But so same time, the Verizon outage is going out on the East Coast, and then the Iran and its outages, and these things are kind of mixed into leave this world behind. So Matthew 24:28 says, "For wherever so the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together," and that to get her, and then Hillary is missing, and then immediately after the tribulation of those days, and we're in these time frames where the 4 tribulations mentioned in Revelation, the seals, vials, trumpets, and the king. We're in those times. This is 4 times 7, the 47 now, the 11th hour, the moon landing, so-called, the dark side of the moon is on its 56th year, depending how you do. They're mentioning today 54, so there's a couple moon landings that we are dealing with. And the 54 is for Elon right now, who will be 55 on 6/28, and then that 28 is referencing to your 24/28, and you're in the 24 of the 9/11 right now, and that 9/11 takes you to that 144,000, and also that is taking you to that 666, and these things as the millennium has been set up, and you are living in days of future past, looking back in time as that mark in the right hand is here, and the second coming of Adon, the Lord, is here, and you have to show your papers, and the Gestapo's showing its face as the ice, and the so-called Jew, the Jesus, the Jesus, the is that Jew that's put on the crosshairs and those types of things. But and then that illegal alien, the alien who just crash landed here, and the so-called alien ship that's buried underneath Greenland that we're told. But these types of things are playing out in little they're told here, but they're happening here in a symbolic form, or as these things are overlaid in our dimension, as you live in overlays of dimension with your 6+ senses that connect you to this world and help you plug in. And then you have this body that helps you plug into this world in different ways as far as connecting those senses and such. So the X had the outage on 24,000, that 24K, that 611, and then the 56 years, 6 months, and the 3 days is coming up, and this is going to take us into the time frame of 56 months, or 56 years to the 9 months, and the 3 days and such, and or the 30 days for the crowning, and that takes us to the 3/11/9 for the World Trade Center 93, and the 9/11 September, and then Elvis to the 3/11 20 and those things, and that's that 85 and the 58 on the backside, and that's that tying to that 4D, and that 4D is being projected on that bridge as Trump is in that high spot in the heavens and such on that bridge, and then he's flipping the switch, and then that's when you have your outages and such, and it's going dark, and then Iran is saying to end Israel, and they're going to so-called take out Trump, and they're not going to miss, and all those things, as we've been told. Oh, let's go into that little golden ratio, the golden ratio. Bill and Hillary is tying into an EMP plot and such as far as that contempt. And then the tokenization of things, that's that. The crypto is now turning into that tokenization, so the dead has risen in a way, and now that birth is happening, and the things are the dollars are being burned into the tokens, and that's part of the Most High and the chief of the tribe. So all these things are playing out in little parable fashions and metaphors and such. So as the sun is going dark, and then the woman, she has the moon shall not show her light, and the stars, they're being shaken and such. So this is and the Trojan horse, or the rogue, Joe Rogan, coming in and saying that ICE is acting like Gestapo and really going to ask to see your papers. And it's where you have states where it's a mere flip-flop in some ways, but it's where, can we see your papers and registration, or your license and registration and such? So we're all just living in these days, going into this thing of where it's being formed at, as there's the 8 years for the woman clothed in the sun, and then these 4 times 7, and the 7 years of the woman clothed in the sun we tracked on the 923, and that's at 329 on the back side, which is a 88 day for the 88th day of the year, March 29th. But the things that are coming in this 80 years on the revaluation of the currencies, and then the Ford was also in the Dearborn, Michigan, and the Dearborn is tied to the Gus, which ties to your Tim Walls in one way, and that system. But the the Gus and the purple flowering, and the China and the cave and the guano, the back guano, and all that shit that goes together as you're being hung from the ceiling, and it's tying to the Baker session in the neck. And we've all putting these things together so you can understand the story of end times and Genesis, and that script as that Bible, the Genesis and the Revelation, they line up, and the chapters 1 through 6 of Genesis, and these 4 creations intertwine with these 4 tribulations of Revelation, and you have your new heaven and earth overlapping your old heaven and earth, and there's a spiritual into carnal, a carnal into spiritual, and we're living in these times of this loop, and this loop is given to you with that magnetophion glass, okay? And the magma is breaking open, and the Trump is on that bridge, that walking across, and that walking across, and that king, those times in the 2026 to the 2028, these times of the 8s and 8s, and these loops to the infinity, and the eternal judgment, and those types of things. But either way, folks, we'll end it here, because we're entering the 116 to the 119 days, and these are overlapping into some major loops into Trump's 2012 so-called, and he's on his 12th month, 2024, the 24, the 2030, the 2029 Apophis. All these kinds of things to be lining up in one way, to the one that we're actually being told about and those types of things. So, but on a time merger in the 11, the 47, these two ones that are connecting together, this technological age, spiritual age per se, as heaven is likened into a net, and these suns are being given a light within this world that's created, and the 250 years on America is the first day in a way. And then you've had the firmament, which is being divided now in the mind, and this is where that 11:11 and the firmament comes, and where some are going to be left behind and some are going to go forward. All right, but eventually that circle and such loops back around, and those who are first are last, and they eventually come into the new world. But and they may have to be born again into the new world as well, because that's what Jesus was telling these people who were under the delusion of their begotten sons. All right, that blinded them. So either way, we have the martial law being talked about, and the we'll end it here, folks.